So with an artographic orientation, the aesthetic experience of reconfiguring material or phenomena into unfamiliar forms enables us to rethink not only something's physical or conceptual boundaries, but also its ontologies, so how it is that it exists in the world and gathers meaning. So this sort of artistic thinking requires small rebellions of thought in a moment of interaction in which, as Maxine Green writes, old either-ors may disappear, and we may collectively and collaboratively make possible a pluralism of visions, a multiplicity of realities, end quote. So in this way, the arts are not additions to something or add-ons to some other element. The arts are not educator-directed activities or idealized examples of children's inner worlds or creativity. Instead, as we've read in the Material Encounters book, the arts are integral aspects of children's daily inquiries and of teacher-researcher inquiries and of the entire research process and pedagogical process as well. So here, art is a meeting place where material, body, thought, and theory come together and propose something. And as Springay, Kind, and Irwin write this week, artists, researchers, teachers engaged in artography are living lives of inquiry, lives full of curiosity, punctuated by questions, searching for deeper understandings while interrogating assumptions, asking oneself questions that linger between, amid, and or within visual, textual, theoretical, analytical, and pedagogical and curricular matters, that is to live a life committed to inquiry, active engagement, and discomfort. So artography offers several renderings to think with in artistic and pedagogical processes, not as prescriptive methods, but rather overlapping and emergent resonances that may give shape to this sort of orientation. So firstly, contiguity is thinking with overlapping interrelatedness in between spaces where things meet and in spaces of difference. So in this liminal space, new thought processes might become possible. And the name artography itself is purposeful in that its two words, art and graphy, or image and text, are proposed to work and overlap together in ways which play off one another toward new forms of subjectivities. They think with living inquiry, which we're familiar with, metonymy, an interplay between content, image, text, image and image, etc., that ruptures a familiar assumption and provokes movement to new thought through ambiguity. Also metaphor, to stretch the linguistic boundaries that determine what something is and propose what something might become. So to displace the original signifier, as we discussed in our photography class, or a work that represents an object. So opening up possibilities to a new, not to fully replace, but to sort of dance between meanings between the signifier and the signified. Artography thinks with openings or ruptures in preconceived thought and knowledge, and drawing on our previous conversations from last week, openings might emerge with moments of epistemological or ontological silence, or when thought stutters. And then lastly, excess are essentially things which have been disregarded as invaluable. Excess can be thought as the seemingly mundane materials or phenomena which in more systematic forms of educational research may be considered surplus or an irrelevant component, which doesn't serve the dominant narrative. And as Stephanie Springay writes, excess exists beyond regulation and control. Excess is located in the periphery. Furthermore, Springay's described excess as that which lies outside the acceptable, or the monstrous, the wasteful, the leftover, the unseen, as well as the magnificent and the sublime. Excess is sort of the never yet known aspects of phenomena that are materializations of potential. So in artography, excess is valued as an integral space for possible thought. So considering your processes of inquiry as a teacher-researcher, in a living inquiry where knowledge is co-constructed through acts of making, through collective processes with others, where ideas gather into a knot and into a sort of form, yet they don't stay there. Knowledge is transformative, and though it may settle somewhere for a while, it never stays in one place and is never located within a static object or a tangible piece of art. And as Wu writes this week in the INSEA Online Magazine article, quote, each material is not only an artwork itself, but is also a fragment that forms a larger process-based artistic practice. End quote. So this requires particular dispositions and orientations to research and pedagogy. So the role of the educator becomes very different than one might assume in a more traditional classroom setting, thinking with the arts, where material logics of regulation and order often determine how curriculum is enacted and thus how knowledge is produced. So Wu draws on Felix Guattari's question, how do you bring a classroom to life as if it were a work of art? So we'll be thinking with this question in your portfolio entry 7 this week. So staying with this question, how do you bring a classroom to life as if it were a work of art? Consider how a classroom with young children might live as a work of art. Select one of the renderings of artography, so one of the ones that I just discussed, and discuss what this element might bring to your work as a teacher-researcher. Furthermore, how might this rendering enliven a classroom to move as a work of art? So this entry will take form as a 300-word minimum written response, and if you like, you may include images to complement the text. So post your portfolio entry 7 to Moodle by Saturday at 11:55 p.m. and respond to a classmate's entry by Sunday at 11:55. Okay, thanks everyone.